Welcome, Dr. Mullen, to our Crisis Hospital Database Project Status Review meeting. My name is Vantarra Edwards.
I am Kemauri Dunn.
I'm Luis Gomez.
My name is Joseph Onoriode Emukarhowhotite.
Okay. As of today, our agenda is we're going to start at 8 a.m. with accomplishments since last meeting. At 8:30, we're going to go over the budget performance schedule and work scope. At 9 a.m., we're going to go over project planning and control. 9:30, risk management. 10, stakeholder issues update. 10:30, customers relations. 11, team relations. 11:30, communications. 12 p.m., problem identification and resolution / lessons learned. At 12:30, we're going to open up a discussion between the team members. And then hopefully by 1:30 p.m., we're going to adjourn the meeting. And now we're going to start with accomplishments since last meeting.
Okay, so the duration of our crisis hospital database was about 27 days. So starting off for the first 5 days, we wanted to kind of go over the database diagram. So basically the database diagram, it consists of, the graphical structure of the database. So we would use the database correctly to modify tables, columns, and relationships. For the next few days, we wanted to identify the primary keys that would be mapped out in each of the tables to basically kind of pull information once you entered a certain keys. We also wanted to map out our relationships, and we would hope to accomplish in about 5 days. Then we would be able to complete our database diagram. Moving to the next 9 days, we would focus on our query language. Basically, so our query language consists of a standard database language, which is used to create and maintain and retrieve the relationship database. So basically, our query language would consist of basically how our database would be communicated on. So on the first 3 days, we would actually focus on our database, our relational database. Moving into the next 4 days, we will actually dive in on our tuple. The next 2 days, we would kind of focus in on our data language. Basically, we would be hoping to complete this query language within 9 days. Moving on to creating the tables, we would basically have about 4 different tables consisting of patient tables, gender tables, symptom tables, and room number tables. So basically these tables would consist of how we would actually divide up our data information would actually be pulled from it. So we would hope to divide this up into 10 days. Our patient table, of course, would be the longest because we feel that we will actually have more patients coming in, due to the current virus. So 10 days, we're hoping to complete our tables. The next will be creating our scripts. We would hope that this would only take about 4 days to load up, because all this is basically us having information to be loaded correctly once new patients are being entered in the system by, of course, our receptionist or someone of not so much high expertise of IT. So we want to basically water this down as much as possible, although we need to make sure that we include enough user accessibility for, of course, lower level, I guess you could say, computer knowledge people. But we also want to implement security features. One of our main security features that we would like to implement is basically levels. So, of course, this would consist of about 3 levels. The first level, of course, would be doctors. The second level would be nurses. The last level would be basically, you could say, hospital staff. Basically, these security features will be implemented in their passwords. So doctors may have special keys when they're logging into the computer, so they're able to access the full database, including patient check-in, patient names, patient genders, and symptoms, and so on and so forth. Of course, the last level, the third level, would not be able to see patient patient names, patient genders, the symptoms that they're experiencing. Basically, all the third level would be able to do is kind of um, implement some of the daily staffing that goes along with the hospital. So that could range from cleaning to I guess you could say taking out the trash. So our last thing will actually be to write our queries. So we will only hope to spend a day on this because our duration of our project has to fall under um, 30 days because we only have a short period of time to actually complete this database. So, during this time, these last few days, basically starting, I guess you could say around noon, we would actually start to test the speed of the database. We'll run a few mocks of it, get a few people in to test some of the features that we have implemented into the new project. And we want to get user feedback to see kind of how we can improve within these last 3 days that we have to complete the database, which would be 30 days. Um, all in all, I'm very happy about where we are right now with some of the things that we've accomplished within our database. I feel like we've worked very diligently. We've laid out a few parameters that we need to follow under that time. I really feel like my team has met those parameters, and I really feel like we're putting out a quality product with our database. And I'm really excited for you to see it.
Okay, and next we'll discuss the budget schedule and technical performance. For the budget performance, first let's discuss the actual cost compared to the baseline budget. The baseline cost was estimated at $8,944, and the actual cost was increased by $1,960, totaling $10,904. Luckily, we still have a lot of wiggle room for uh, in our budget because we were set at a $2 million overall budget, and we set aside 500,000 specifically for labor. Next, let's go ahead and discuss the schedule performance. As we all know, our projected baseline start date was July 21st, and our baseline finish was scheduled for August 26th. As of right now, we're still on track to be completed by August 26th, which is great for us as of right now, especially with everything going on. We did run into a little mishap because of the COVID-19 virus. None of us have ever experienced something of that magnitude before, so it was a little difficult to go around that, but it did cause us to extend finishing our database diagram from originally 5 days to 6 days. And identifying primary keys, it went from 2 days to 9 days. By doing that extension, the database diagram increased cost by $1,680, and also when we had to extend for the identifying the primary keys, it also increased by $1,680, which isn't too bad because again we're still below the budget. All of our current activities as of right now, we're at 100% completion for the time being, and we plan to stay at the 100% completion rate by August 26th. For our trends, like I stated previously before, the COVID-19 did have us establish more safety protocols that we would use more than usual, which did extend our labor. But these corrections have already been implemented in our risk management plan, so we no longer need to worry about those factors at least. For forecast, the forecasted cost is still set to stay at $10,904. for labor, but if anything happens, again, we do have that wiggle room, so we should be set and we're good to go. For the variances, everything has been rectified by the risk management plan. So as of right now, the only positive variance is that we will be finished on time. And if we aren't, the board of directors and everybody else is on par. We are aware that we're working with a finicky schedule right now. Finally, I'll move to the technical performance. The final scope of our work is turning out to be way better than planned, although we did run into a couple hiccups along the way. The fact that we are still on par or still ready to finish at August 26th is quite an amazing improvement, especially since we weren't quite sure how the COVID was going to affect our database, especially since we're working with a hospital to get this done. Our communication, documentation, and approvals are all up to date, and we're currently being monitored for future endeavors. So that's great for us to know. And this concludes my portion.
Yeah, I will be talking about the project planning and control. So on the project planning and control, we have two questions that I need to answer. The first question is, was the project plan in a sufficient details? Yeah, actually, yes, it was planned in a sufficient detail because at the beginning of the project, we created the project charter, which include what we're supposed to accomplish on all the projects. Like the first one, we have to come up with a project title, which is incorporating the database and the management system. So the purpose, we'll talk about the purpose why we're creating this. So the next one, we'll talk about the description about the project that we're planning to do. So the next step, we'll talk about the objective that we're trying to create, the objective of this project. And the objective is we're trying to create a new database on the hospital campus and check for durability / accuracy. So we talked about, on the project chapter, we talked about the success criteria. We'll talk about the success criteria, which has to do with the quality management system. We talked about how successful the database will help coordinate and direct organization, how the database will improve the efficiency and continue and the benefit of the database. So we'll talk about the funding, because for every project planning, you have to make your budget, you have to make your planning, you have to make exactly what you need, the cost of the project, because if there's no cost of project, that means that project will fail, because you need to know your cost, you need to know your materials, you need to know everything that you're supposed to create, everything you need to create the project. So funding is one of the key things when you're planning a project. So we talk about the major durability. So we talk about the duration performance. So how good this project will perform. What is the performance aspect? Because sometimes you run into some obstacle, so you have to consider when you're planning the project, you have to consider some things like, okay, what about if I run into this? What about if this thing don't work? What do I need to do? So that's where the duration performance will come into play. Then we talked about the completion of the performance. So when you first of all, you test run. When you test run, if you have any problem, it takes you back for you to okay, let me go back and fix this. So those are process of planning a project. So we talked about the acceptance criteria. So the acceptance criteria is like, for example, let's say a hospital device will be checked for any damage prior to implementing the new database. So we talked about the milestone schedule. So the milestone schedule talked about like the office proposal. We have the buy SQL software. So there are some things like there are some things you need to like purchase for you to like get your project planning to go according to the way it's supposed to be. So we talk about the key assumption. So the key assumption, like what we talked about at the, for the project chapter, was the contractor will use the properties of the hospital wings to start the project. Hospital IT personnel will work on the database as the start of the new fiscal year. So it pretty much kind of like explain the way the information technology will work. So it gets tools like when you're creating a database, so you have to like what my team member said earlier before, you have to like create SQL statement. Since you're working on database, you have to use my SQL, you have to write the SQL statement, you have to do your queries. So those are the key assumptions. So we talked about the major risk. So for every project that you're planning, there's always a risk. There's always, you run into some problem, you run into some major risk. So we talked about the risks that we're supposed to face, possible risks that we're supposed to run into. So we talk about the approval requirement. We talk about project management. So these are kind of like key things you need to put in place when you are planning a project. So my next question is, were the plan updated in a timely manner to incorporate changes? Yes, our plan will continue to update on a daily basis. Anytime we want to make changes, we probably prepare the staff before it was implemented, because when you're trying to make changes, you have to make the people who work there, you have to make the staff to know, like, let's say you want to work on a software or you want to work on a computer, you give notice before time, okay, this is what we need to do, this is what we need to do. So that way you give, you give a heads up, so that way they'll know what to do and continue from there. So that is a little idea that I have for the project planning and control. So I will go to the next slide.
So with risk management, the first point is, was the project outcome impacted by the occurrence of an unexpected event? Unexpected events, if so, were they identified in the risk plan? Our project's outcome was in fact impacted by unexpected events. One of those events happened to be us passing our baseline start dates for a couple of tasks. We sometimes come to find out that it wasn't possible for us to start at a certain time due to inconvenient circumstances. We'd previously identified this risk on our own risk plan, and had prepared ahead of time on what we'd do if we could not meet the baseline start dates. We had in mind of having backups to certain tasks just in case the main person in charge of that task was not able to work on his or her assigned task. And the second point asks, were the high probability and high impact risks adequately identified at the beginning of the project? After seeing us work on this project for some time, we can say that we did our best at trying to adequately identify high probability and high impact risks, but we weren't 100% on the dot, and that's okay because we're not perfect. What we can say is that identifying these risks at the beginning based on high probability and high impact helped us focus more on the risks that were the most dangerous and most likely to occur. This set us straight because it gave us enough time to plan and strategize on what we'd do in case certain risks would have occurred. For the last question, were there any risks that should have been but were not identified at the beginning of the project? One of the risks that we didn't identify in the beginning of our project was the risk of someone on our team having technical difficulties or networking issues. This took up quite some time, and it was time that we could have used to work on a task or time that we could have used to talk about any problems or challenges that we were each facing with our assigned tasks. Not having this on our risk plan ahead of time had an impact on the outcome of our project.
Okay, so the stakeholder issues update, were the roles, so these are the questions basically that I'll have to answer during this project. Were the roles and expectations of each stockholder clear and ambiguous? where good working relationships developed with each stakeholder was the regular communication with all stockholders. So at the beginning of our project, basically the roles and expectations of each stockholder was clear. Basically, they wanted an efficient database at a premium price that would be able to keep up with the capacity of patients that they were experiencing due to a high demand in new healthcare. Um, Basically, I feel like at first, with the initial meeting with the stakeholders, we did have, we were able to develop a good relationship with them. But I feel like kind of towards the middle part, towards the end, we were experiencing a little bit of pushback from them just due to some of the we're experiencing. Like I said, COVID, and also some of the challenges that are associated with that. So not being able to meet on a regular basis. When we are meeting, we do have to practice social distancing because we weren't very clear of, who had the virus during this time. Because like I said, this was June, so we were just coming off quarantine. Um, Overall, there was regular communication with the stockholders. We would probably check in with them at about every 2 weeks just to discuss the budget that we were trying to stay under and some of the improvements that we were making to the database. So overall, we would have about a few weekly meetings with the stockholders to basically go over things that we had accomplished. So some of the items that I had laid out before, we would actually meet with them about every 5 weeks once we had completed a task. But as we experienced um, items being pushed out a little bit more, like I said, due to the virus, that's when we really started to experience some pushback from the stockholders. And that's kind of where I felt like our relationship might have took a dip at. But overall, basically going into the second week, I felt like we worked very diligently with the stockholders and some of the things that they were requiring from us. Like I said, the third and the fourth week, we were very in tune with the. I really feel like that's where we were able to kind of develop a better relationship, as some of the things that we had discussed previously were not on time. We kind of had to reamp our schedule just a little bit. So that's why I really feel like some of the pushback came from them. But overall, the expectations, the relationship, and the communication was fairly good. We really wanted this to be a positive with them because we wanted a good review. Since we are, building a database for them, we want to build databases for other people. So we definitely want a good reputation from them. Staying with under the 30 days would prove us to be very efficient. And we were able to basically kind of gauge where we would want to be in a few more days. And overall, I really feel like our communication, our relationship with the stockholders was very good. And this is pretty much all for the stockholder issues update.
Okay, and now to customer relationships. The first question was every effort made to make the customer a participant in the success of the project. Um, of course, our customer is the board of directors at the crisis hospital. When they originally reached out to us in order to make their their database management system, they were very highly engaged on what they wanted. They wanted an easy to use state of art system that was effective and efficient, but also was able to hold the capacity for all of their patients that they have or hold all their information. So we definitely went ahead and discussed every route and avenue that we wanted or that they wanted to take in order to create the database of their dreams and what they were looking for. So yes, they did add into or aid into the success of the project. Next question is, was the customer asked on a regular basis about the level of satisfaction with the performance and progress of the project? Um, We definitely established daily surveys for them to take, and for each director for them to take, as well as we kept constant communication as best as we possibly could via email and through the telephone, to keep them up to date, and then just to also allow them to add anything else that they wanted to add. We were pretty flexible with our schedule. And for the last question, were there regularly scheduled face-to-face meetings with the customer? Due to COVID, we weren't able to have as many face-to-face meetings with the board of directors as we possibly could. So we did establish multiple Zoom meetings. They were originally scheduled for every Monday and Thursday at 7 a.m. But again, we did have to remain flexible. So sometimes those times changed. But other than that, we were still at least able to have some sort of meeting with them and then to always give them an update. So as of right now, that concludes my section.
I'll be talking about the team relationship. On the team relationship, we have three questions. So one of the questions is, did the team participate in the planning this project? I'll say yes. At the beginning, it was kind of like rocky because it was we kind of like miscommunication because of due to the coronavirus that is going on. So, but towards like the middle, we kind of like started having communication. We started communicating better more and talked about this project. So, but so far so good. If I have the opportunity to work with people for another project, I would choose the same team member because most of the things I kind of like lack, most of them, they have strength on it. And we started communicating better more and we're able to like, okay, we can do this, we can pull this off. So I'll say I work with a nice team and I really want to work with them again. So the next question said, was there a team feeling and a commitment to the success of this project? Yeah, like what I said before. At the beginning, it was rough because actually I did not really understand about I was having problem with the Microsoft project. But one of my team member, Louis, kind of like walked me through it and said, this is how you can do it, this is how you can do it. So with teamwork, it was successful. And Maureen kind of like explained some few things about the database to me, and Vantarra was really of helpful too. So we kind of like stick together and kind of like walk over it, and it was successful. So my last question was like, were there any condition that impeded the teamwork? Yeah, like what my teammate said before, with this coronavirus that is going on, so it's kind of like make people, we cannot really like communicate well. A lot of people, like we have some kind of like, okay, everybody, most of us work. So the timeline is kind of a little bit kind of like off, but we're able to like, okay, let's communicate, let's talk where we can meet, let's talk how we can do this. So it was kind of tough, but with good team, when you have good team members, you can pull something up. So with the good team members I have, we're able to like, okay, we can do this. So we're able to put this to work. So we're able to put the project that we talked about. So I'll say that's a good team relationship. So for here, I will leave the next slide to my team member.
So for for team communications, first question is, was the team kept informed of the project status and potential problems in a timely manner? We did have quite some issues when it came down to team communication. There were times when we weren't able to meet up through Zoom to talk about issues or concerns. However, we were able to stick through it and find enough time to come together and deal with the issues that we were having with the project. It was also really nice to have teammates that were willing to help you out with a specific task that you were having trouble with, even if it meant staying up really late. For the second question, was the project environment conducive to open, honest, and timely communications? The project environment was really open. Everyone on the team felt free to share any ideas that they had in mind, and we were also very honest about how we felt about certain tasks or deadlines. Overall, the environment was very friendly and welcoming. For the last question, were project meetings productive? I'd say that our meetings helped us out a lot because it's when we each allotted some time from our schedules to talk about issues and share any concerns or questions that we had about certain problems. For the most part, having the project meetings is what helped us move forward and helped us know where each of us were at and what we were each going to do next. And for the next slide, problem problems ide- problem identification and resolution / lessons learned. Were mechanisms in place for team members to identify potential problems early on? One of the mechanisms that we used to identify potential problems at an early stage was that we informed one another ahead of time when we were facing difficult issues. I believe that this saved us a lot of time because identifying those difficult issues early on helped us work with one another in finding the resolution to those problems. It would give other teammates enough time to do more research on what could have been causing that issue, and it also gave other team members enough time to find some time to set apart and work with the team member who was having that difficulty. Another mechanism that we used was we classified the issue based on what it was. If it was an issue that was time-based, then we would alert the rest of the team that we had a time-based issue on our hands. If it was an issue that was specific to the database, then we would alert the rest of the team that we had a database issue on our hands. This was also very helpful because certain teammates who had stronger skills in certain areas were able to help others who didn't have such strong skills in those certain problems and that were having those issues. The second question is, did appropriate team members participate in problem solving? Team members did participate in problem solving, and that's one of the reasons why we were able to overcome many issues that we were facing. The third point, what particular things were done well on the project that helped the project and should be done on other projects? Something that helped this project and that we believe can help other projects that we may have in our future is commitment. There were times when none of us knew what to do for a specific problem or how we could overcome a certain problem, but the commitment that the team showed was the key in getting us through the couple of downhills that we walked through. Last question, what things were done that hindered the project and should be eliminated or changed on future projects? Something that we did that hindered our project was that we focused too much time on the design of our database, and we also invested way too much time on specific issues. Instead of focusing too much time on one thing or a couple of things, I think it would have, if we would have spread our time out evenly, it would have made the project go a lot smoother. We would have had, we would sometimes find ourselves running out of time because we invested too much time on one specific thing. For this project, we learned that we shouldn't invest too much time on one specific thing or else we will fall behind on something else.
Okay, for the open discussion, uh, for opportunities for improvement, the only thing that I would like to add or suggest is having more face-to-face meetings. The only reason why we weren't, or face-to-face meetings with the board of directors, the only reason why we weren't able to do that, of course, was because of COVID, and it was kind of difficult to establish a personal relationship with our customers if we are able to like go out and have like go out and be in social settings. But other than that, I believe we did as great as we possibly could have done. Um, via the telephone and emails and Zoom meetings. Recommendations for future projects, just like Louise said previously before, we did take a little bit of time focusing on lesser parts of the project. But other than that, again, I believe that we've done a great job so far, and we will continue to do a great job and finish this project on time. And I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. This is the end of our meeting. Are there any questions, concerns, or comments?
None on my end.
None for me either.
Not for me either.
Okay, great. And that concludes our meeting. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you,
too.
you as well.
Thank you.